What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we are talking about my top 5 baits for the month of August. Can you guys believe that it is August already? Man, this year has just flown by. I can't believe how quickly summer has gotten here and is almost over. But August, usually around, for the most part, around the entire country, is probably one of, or if not the most hottest months of the entire year. So we are full-blown summertime patterns, right? It doesn't matter if you're up north, out west, wherever, summertime, hot, okay? So trying to make this top 5 baits list for the month of August, you know, obviously it's always a struggle to limit the amount of things we're going to talk about, the different techniques and baits, but I think I did an okay job. I think I ended up with 5 categories, but the first category has a few different baits in it. The first category, my number 1 bait or number 1 category for the month of August is a topwater. Okay, so let's talk about August, right? We talked about it's probably the hottest month of the entire year, at least on average, right? So your water temps are sky high. If you are on a fishery that has grass, it's probably now topped out, right? You probably have some matted grass. If not, it'll be on the surface shortly. We have fish that have basically gotten into some hot water, right? It's the hottest water probably of the entire year. So now we're talking about low light fishing when the water's a little bit cooler. Maybe we have some cooler evenings. Probably not. Those will start here in another few weeks or so. But if you have, you know, here on the Tennessee River, we've had a ton for the last month or so. It's been completely dry, but now we're like rain basically a week or 10 days straight. So we're getting filled back up. Everything's green and lively again, but it has dropped the temps a little bit. But you have these fish that are basically in the hottest water they've seen all year. You've had a lot of pressure, right? A lot of people fish that pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn transition into summertime. So these fish are well educated by this time of the year. So the number 1 category is gonna be a topwater, but I added some extra baits in there because of that last thing I talked about, educated, right? These fish have seen the normal size stuff. They've seen the normal sounding stuff. They've seen the normal shaped stuff. So I kind of took that into consideration when putting this list together. So number 1 bait or number 1 category for the month of August is going to be a topwater, okay? Let's talk frogs and grass for a second, and then we'll talk about some baits that you can fish if you aren't cheesed in, or if you aren't grassed in with a lot of vegetation. So my number 1 bait in this category is going to be a frog. I love throwing a frog. I think about it, I dream about it all winter time. When it's cold out, I'm like, man, I wish I could be throwing a frog on mats, on matted grass, in cheese. In my opinion, that is one of the best ways to catch them. Power on power, 65, 80 pound braid, heavy rod, and you're throwing into the thickest of stuff. And now is that time, right? We've gotten there. Grass is on top, like I said. This is actually, there they go again, always busting when I'm shooting a video. This is actually the scum frog. We've talked about that here in the last couple years. Out of the package, that is one of, if not the softest frogs on the market. That has quickly become one of our favorite frogs. But here's the deal, guys. If you're a frog fisherman, you probably have your own favorite frogs. If not, I will link a couple down below in the video description. But your traditional 65-ish sized frog is typically what everybody is throwing, and it's primarily what these fish have seen all the way up until right now, right? So, got a couple different ones for you. Okay, that's that scum frog. You guys know that we love that frog. The new snag proof frog, that Bobby's Perfect frog, is another great option. But over the last couple years, Matt and I are probably our most producing frog, especially when the frog bite gets tough. gonna be this little guy right there. Look at this guy compared to a full-size frog. It is quite a bit smaller. And you'll find this kind of pattern in all these techniques, but just going a little smaller, a little bit different than all the other frogs that are hitting the mat, right? That Jackal Kyara, however you want to say it, beautiful little guy. This is a frog that you can throw on a little bit lighter line, 50-pound braid. Same rod, if not a little bit lighter, but that Zodius, that 7, I think it's a 7.2 heavy, is a cool little rod. I think that's what I throw it on, 7.2 heavy. That thing is an awesome little frog rod. But this guy right there, downsizing my frog. I'm still throwing it in the same locations, but just a little bit different, a little bit more finessey, okay? Now you guys that aren't fishing grass and you are throwing topwater still, everybody's throwing, in the last few years, probably a lot has to do with Matt and I, but that 105 size style walking bait. That 105 style shape, size is just a winner. That shower blows, a lot of those topwater baits in that smaller presentation works really, really well. So on the flip side, we're going a little bit bigger. This guy right here is the Jowler. It's actually a 127 size, so a little bit bigger, and has that face on it. That's a really cool bait. You guys have probably heard us talk about it a little bit recently. Awesome color, kind of mix that bone in there with that chrome color. You guys know how much we love chrome, but that Jowler is a fantastic topwater bait if you want to be different. Again, that's kind of the name of the game in the month of August. These fish have seen a lot of things, okay? So same great action as a topwater, a little bit different sound, a little bit different spitting action, but a little bit different profile. And then last but not least, the wake bait, right? One extreme to the other. We're talking about downsizing frogs. We're talking about upsizing our topwaters. The Tactical 210 Wake is a bait that Matt and I designed several years ago. You guys know how much we love this bait. Thank you guys for all the messages and pictures and stuff that you guys have been sending with big fish caught on it. We really appreciate that, and we're stoked that it's working for you guys too. But on the flip side, we're going bigger, right? If you're on that grass line where everybody's thrown a Vixen or a shower blows or a spook, and you've tried going a little bit bigger, a little bit louder, now go with this guy right here. This guy produces when other baits won't. 2-pounders will eat it, 10-pounders eat it. So if you're a guy that's been not getting a lot of activity on your topwater, everybody around you's throwing topwater baits, now is the time to play around with the different sizes. All right, guys, I did topwater, 1, because it's my favorite way to catch them, and 2, it was the largest category, but hopefully, oh, forgot about this guy, a buzz bait. That's Suicide Buzz by Big Bite. That's a swim bait on there. If you're a guy that wants to cover a ton of water, I threw that in there as an alternative for the wake bait or the walking bait. But guys, that wraps up the top water category. That, like I said, that's probably my favorite way to catch them. It's what I think about all year, throwing a frog, power fishing, big baits on top. Some of those explosions you guys will remember for the rest of your life. All right. Number two category, I promise this one's a lot simpler. We're going with a swim bait, okay? Same situations, whether you're on a lowland reservoir or a river system or a delta where you're fishing grass, or you're on a clear water highland reservoir, a swim bait still catches fish this time of the year. Now these fish are starting to get active again, right? They're starting to kind of think about that fall transition depending on where you are in the country. But we know that there's baby panfish, right? Baby bluegill, baby crappie, the shad have spawned, baby gizzards. There's a lot of activity around them and a lot of bait fish. So 100%, I always have some kind of swim bait tied on in the month of August. Primarily, it's gonna be this guy right here. That is the Swammer rigged on a owner flashy swimmer because it is weedless. I can expose this, I can fish this over the tops of grass, I can fish it along the grass edges, I can actually fish it in the grass, pop it through and reel it fairly quickly over the top, right? But it's weedless, so you can throw this thing shallow, you can throw it deep, but the biggest thing is you can throw it through the stuff. So the flashy swimmer, and then as far as the swim bait, you guys know how much we love that swammer. Has a lot more kick to it, a lot more roll to it than, let's say, a Kitech or an Easy Shine or something like that, that's more of a finessey cold water swim bait. That swammer paired with that flashy swimmer is lights out. Then on the clear water, the downsized stuff that we're talking about, now we're talking about our little underspin with the little small swimmer. If you want something with a little bit narrower kick or a more of a tight fleeing action, you can go with that Largo shad, or there's a couple really good ones. I'll link those down below. That little 2.75 swammer on our little underspin is lights out as well. This is a bait that can be thrown on a bait finesse rod. It can be thrown on a spinning rod or your favorite lighter bait caster. But that guy right there, a swim bait, you will catch fish no matter which body of water you're in. If you have grass, go with that weedless version. If you have clearer water, open water, deeper water, go with that exposed hook, and you guys will catch fish. All right, number 3, summertime. Probably already thinking, you know, most fish go deep in the summer. Well, that's not necessarily true, but a lot of fish do go deep, and a crankbait. You cannot talk about summertime fishing without throwing a crankbait into the mix. So that's my number 3 technique for the month of August. So whether it's a Strike King 6XD or a little square bill, you guys should be throwing a crankbait. Okay, those same situations, right? Shallow grass, 100%, I am throwing this guy right here. This is the Damiki BTC 50, a little 50 size square bill. The reason I am specific on this guy right here, the grass. This is my go-to grass square bill. When the water is just below the surface or just getting to the surface, this thing goes less than a foot. So I can burn this thing over the tops of the grass, keep my rod tip up, burn, 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 pause. If I hit or I tick the tops of the grass, I can pop it and then reel it, get that thing stop and go action, and these fish will come unglued out of the grass, okay? These fish, they're in that grass. It is hot. Water temps are hot, we already covered that. They're in that green, lively grass. They are in the thickest, darkest, shaded stuff to stay cool and ambush from. That guy is a winner. Your favorite square bill will work too. Just make sure you're not throwing one that'll dive that 4 to 5 foot, because you'll be hung up way too much. This little shallow guy is awesome, okay? You can throw it along the grass lines too, the grass edges. With that said, if you're on a body of water where you're not necessarily fishing in that 1 to 3 foot range and you're fishing that 12 to 18 foot range, these guys right here, the Strike King 6XD, the Rapala DT16 or 20 are great crankbaits. Fairly silent. These are things you can move fairly quickly. We talked about in depth, I don't know, a week or 2 ago, we talked about it. We had an in-depth video on summer cranking, so I'm not gonna go too in-depth on these guys right here, but one of, if not both, work great for you this time of the year. I would grab a deep crank, I'd grab a shallow crank, depending on the water depth you're fishing, depending on the types of fishery, one or the other will come into play, I promise you, this month. All right, let's slow it down a little bit. Now, this one was tough. You know, this was a toss-up between, you know, a jig or, you know, a biffle head or, you know, some kind of football head that moves, a pivot point football. But I actually went with a Texas-rigged creature bait. Specifically, this is the Destroyer by Missile Baits. Right? For years, we threw the brush hogs and we threw whatever. I just really like the longer appendages on this guy. Smaller body, has kind of that D-bomb body with the ribs. But I throw this on an unpegged, lighter Texas rig, okay? So I'm throwing a lighter weight, whether it's 3/16, it might be a quarter. Probably the biggest I'm gonna throw is 3/8, and it's gonna be unpegged because I want that bait to fall down and I want this bait to fall fairly slow, okay? Understand that if you're fishing around brush piles, or you're fishing around docks, or you're fishing around visible cover this time of the year, shade lines on that stuff, understand that these fish have seen a ton of baits, right? It's August. These fish saw these baits in June. They saw these baits in July. So now want to give them a little bit different fall or feel or look, right? So having those appendages kind of swim down, having it come down slower. If I need to, I can downsize. I might go with the Baby Destroyer, a smaller presentation. But these fish have seen hundreds of jigs, right? They've seen that stuff. So putting this list together for August, that goes into play, right? You're like, let's change it up just a little bit. You know, yes, you could probably still flip and pitch a jig around and you will catch fish, but I have a ton of confidence in a creature, a weightless or an unpegged, weighted Texas rig creature bait is going to be my number 4 bait. I think that's number 4, right? Yeah, number 4. All right. Number 5, same thing came into play. I went with a drop shot. I went with a 6-inch worm, specifically on a drop shot because of the same reasons I just talked about in the unpegged Texas rig creature bait. Everybody's throwing a shaky head, right? It just happens. It's our confidence baits, right? I have one tied on as well. But with that said, having that bait suspended up off bottom, right? Drop shot, you have the weight below it. Your leader is anywhere from 6 inches to 18 inches, and you have this bait horizontal, weedless. It's just sitting there floating in up off bottom. It just gives them a little bit different option than they've seen, right? They've probably seen hundreds of shaky heads where they're weighted at the head, this thing's sitting up vertically. It's just a presentation. You can throw your favorite worm that you throw on a shaky head, but throw it on that power shot or that drop shot. Now it takes that worm from sitting like this and putting it horizontal. It's getting it up off bottom, just a little different presentation. And I've caught a lot of fish in, around, through grass, in, around, through brush piles with this setup right here. Typically a 1/4 ounce, 3/16 or a 1/4 ounce tungsten weight. I'm going with a weight that I can tie on. That way I don't have to worry about losing that weight in stuff, or if that fish comes up and head shakes and throws that weight. And I'm going out with this guy right here. They're a 1/0 or a 2/0 Owner Cover Shot HD. These fish are active. They are hot, right? Hot as in temperature wise and hot as and active. When you hook these fish, this is the time of the year that you might get your hook bent out. So I like to step up my hook wire thickness a little bit. So I throw that Cover Shot HD, and you can pull the big fish out of heavy cover with that hook right there. I think that's 5, but I'm gonna throw in one more for you just because I couldn't leave home without, I don't leave home without this last technique. So I think we're going with 6. If I count it right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last one is going to be some kind of soft plastic jerk bait. Whether it's the Zoom Super Fluke that we've all known and thrown for years, or this guy right here, the X-Zone Whiplash Shad. A lot softer bait. You guys have heard us talk about this bait here quite a bit the last year or so, but I have them rigged 2 different ways. If you're gonna get real aggressive, real quick, maybe you're working this thing over the tops of the grass, we're going with that Zoom Super Fluke, some kind of shad pattern, some kind of 3/0 or 4/0 EWG Superline hook, right? You can get that thing hopping and skipping and fleeing like a frantic bait fish. Or you can hit it a little bit softer. This thing has a lot more drifting, side to side action, slower, more methodical. That's why I rigged it right here with the nose hook. You guys know that little tip that we give you where you take that Owner centering pin and you screw it into the face of the bait, okay? And then you take your favorite drop shot hook or wacky rigged hook and you rig through the face of that bait and then through that loop, and you get that right there, okay? That is an awesome way to fish this in open water or with water with a lot less grass. You know, twitch, that thing, and then just that slow kind of glide, dying bait fish fall, okay? So that whiplash shad is awesome for that technique. And then having that nose rig is awesome this time of the year if you're offshore, if you're around schooling fish, or you don't necessarily have to be in the grass. Maybe it's sparse grass. That guy right there will put them in the boat for you. Guys, it is August. It is hot out. It's actually nice and cool this evening. We had a front roll through, but it is August. The water temps are hot. I mean, we're talking in the 90s, right? 91, 92 here on the Tennessee River. Hot. It's like getting into a bath or a hot bath, right? These fish have seen a lot. It's we're 8 months into the year. These fish have seen a lot of baits. They've seen a lot of pressure. So don't be afraid to get out there. Don't be afraid to fish the middle of the day, fish into the evening and night, and don't be afraid to change up the sizes on your favorite baits. So if you're throwing a top water, go a little bit bigger, go a little bit smaller, a little bit louder, a little bit quieter. Whatever you've been throwing, whatever you think they've been seeing a ton of, just make some small adjustments. But these baits right here will catch fish no matter where you guys are in the country. Guys, down below, I will link all of these baits we talked about, our favorite colors, the hooks, the gear, all that good stuff. If you're watching on a computer, just click more. If you're watching on a cell phone, hit those 3 little dots. It'll bring down that video description. You can scroll and it'll send you, there'll be links to all this stuff that goes right to Tackle Warehouse where you guys can see bigger pictures, HD pictures of all the stuff we're talking about. But guys, it is August. Get out. There's tons of fish to be caught and you guys will have a blast. As always, guys, we appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. If you learned something from this video or you like this video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Guys, as always, thanks for watching and we will see you guys on the next video.